Hello and welcome back to the Mod Assistance channel. We are really excited about today's video because we're going to be sharing some of our favorite recipes for Thanksgiving that can be made ahead or made almost entirely in the slow cooker, which both of those options are going to make your Thanksgiving day a lot easier if you are in charge of hosting and or cooking. So let's get right into the recipes. Dessert is the perfect place to start when we're talking about make-ahead meals for Thanksgiving. Most desserts that are traditional to Thanksgiving or work well for this time of year can be made ahead and warmed up right before you're ready to serve, and they are absolutely perfect that way. We love to make ahead a pumpkin pie, a pecan pie, a sweet potato pie, whatever your family likes to have as their traditional Thanksgiving dessert. But to serve with that, we actually went with this Dutch apple cake recipe because we love to use apples this time of year. It's a great time of year to get use of the apples, especially if you were able to go apple picking with your family. And this cake really does work well for make ahead. It's a pretty traditional cake layer, and then you take some seasoned slices of apples with the traditional seasoning, cinnamon, nutmeg, that type of pumpkin pie spice. And you push the apples down into the cake batter as you see. And then as it bakes low and slow. So you do want to give yourself a little bit of time when you're prepping. But the cake actually bakes up over the apples. So you'll see here when we slice it, the apples do kind of push down into the cake, but the cake almost comes up above it. So it's a really interesting way to do it. We've never done anything like this where you're physically pushing the fruit down into the cake. Worked really well. To make this Dutch apple cake ahead, we did make it 2 to 3 days in advance to when we wanted to serve it. And we actually stored it in a Ziploc bag, closed up tightly in the fridge. We did choose to warm it up whole in the oven just for a few minutes, low temperature, right before serving. So it has that really nice, just out of the oven, warm taste. You could serve it completely plain, top it with a little bit of whipped cream, which, by the way, whipped cream is another thing that you can make ahead. And it was a really nice complement to some of the traditional pies that you also serve for Thanksgiving. Now that dessert's ready, let's talk side dishes. Because again, side dishes are a great thing to have completely ready to go in advance, warm up in the oven just before serving. One of our absolute favorite side dishes is green bean casserole. Let us know in the comments if you are a green bean casserole type of person. I think it might be a little bit polarizing, but we love it. This recipe that we used, that we will link down below, all of the recipes we talk about in this video will be linked in the description box. But we specifically looked for a recipe that didn't use the cream of mushroom, cream of chicken soup that many of us know and do love from our childhood, from our grandparents' cooking. This recipe actually makes a creamed sauce from scratch. This is also really nice if you do have allergies in your family or when you are serving Thanksgiving. We were able to use a lactose-free cream in this recipe, and it still worked beautifully. It was still absolutely delicious. But because you're making that cream sauce from scratch, you have that ability to use your own ingredients. But it still had some nice fresh green beans, a nice creamy mushroom sauce, and of course those classic crispy French onions on top, actually all mixed in and then also placed on top. To prep this ahead, we took it to this step here. We took it to the step right before cooking, right before baking, and kept that in the fridge covered tightly. When we were ready to serve, popped it in the oven. It crisped up beautifully, only needed about 15 to 20 minutes in the oven, and it was ready to go. Perfect for make-ahead meals for Thanksgiving. If you ask our humble opinion, sweet potatoes are another must-have at the dining room table for Thanksgiving. There are so many different ways that you can do sweet potatoes. You could have it as a side dish. You could have it as dessert. We found this candied sweet potato recipe online, and it worked really well for a make-ahead side dish. Most of the work could be done ahead of time. Take it all the way to actually baking and then just warm it up again right before you're ready to serve. Only needed a few minutes in the oven, and it really did turn out delicious. This does take a bit of prep work because you do have to peel and slice all of the sweet potatoes. But the great thing about sweet potatoes is that this step could also be done ahead of time. So even if you wanted to do your prepping of ingredients a few days ahead, then maybe 1 or 2 days ahead actually start to bake things, and then the day of warm everything back up. That could be a really nice plan, and this recipe would work well for that because sweet potatoes can hold up on their own when sliced ahead of time. This candied sweet potato recipe does call for some really nice fall warm spices and also a little bit of bourbon. You can absolutely leave the bourbon out. What's really key to make the sweet potatoes candied is actually the sugar that's used in it. So the bourbon was a nice little added spice. Wasn't anything that you could really taste. It was just a little bit, but we found that to be really fun and something interesting for this recipe. Once you coat the sweet potatoes in that spiced sweet syrup, you do bake it in the oven until it gets nice and crisp and candied. So again, we actually, when making this ahead of time, took it all the way to this step. We cooked it completely ahead of time and then let it cool and kept it in the refrigerator in a Tupperware container tightly closed. Right before serving, we warmed it up in the oven, and that's when we topped it with these pecans and a couple sage leaves just to add some green to it. It was a really easy recipe to prep ahead of time, and of course, added the sweet potatoes to the table that are always needed. Now we are taking a little bit of a turn here from purely make-ahead meals to slow cooker meals, to slow cooker recipes that can be used for Thanksgiving. We, like so many, love our slow cookers, and it is absolutely a tool that you can use for Thanksgiving. We had to start off with a slow cooker turkey recipe. We had to try it. This works really well if you do not have a large family that requires you to bake a complete turkey. We have absolutely done that in the past, and you tell yourself you're going to eat all the leftovers, but you never do. So this uses your slow cooker to keep it really easy, but only uses a turkey breast. So you can keep the portions down if you do have a small family or just a small gathering of people for Thanksgiving this year. This recipe called for a really nice seasoned butter to go on top, which we found to be key. It absolutely kept the turkey moist in the slow cooker and added a lot of flavor. Another really important part of this recipe, and we're really glad that it was included in the recipe, is to brown the turkey skin after you take it out of the slow cooker. That is something that if you skipped that step, you would certainly miss it, and it wouldn't taste like that traditional turkey that you're used to, that crispy buttered skin. So with this recipe, it cooked all day long in the slow cooker. Put it in, walk away, don't worry about it. When it's ready, you just take it out, and you do put it in the oven under the broiler for just a few minutes to get a nice crispy skin, and it really did turn out tasting just like if you roasted a turkey the traditional way. And of course, to go along with our slow cooker turkey is slow cooker stuffing, because you cannot have one without the other when it comes to Thanksgiving. We wanted to test this recipe out as well. Our fear was that the stuffing would be too soft and wouldn't have any texture to it. That, I guess, is always a fear for stuffing, but that especially worried us for slow cooker stuffing. And we are here to say it was not like that. This is a delicious recipe. Definitely check it out in the description box below. If you want to have an option to cook your stuffing in a slow cooker, we really did love this. We used our own bread cubes. We sliced up a day-old loaf of bread into these small cubes, so that did take a little bit of prep time, but it was really nice to have that fresh bread used in this recipe. It just adds a little bit of extra flavor and texture. The seasoning used was very traditional, the types of flavors and seasoning that you would expect from a Thanksgiving meal. Just like with the turkey, put it in the slow cooker, walk away, do not worry about it. We did go in and mix it up just a few times to make sure there weren't any burnt pieces around the edges, as with many slow cooker recipes. But this one turned out great, and we cooked it ahead of time, and when it was time to serve, we just spooned it out into a bowl, put a little bit of a garnish on top to add some color, because stuffing is a pretty bland recipe when you're talking about just visually. So added a little bit of greens, and it was a really big hit, and we're really excited that we have a recipe for stuffing to be made in a slow cooker. This really was a winner. And to round out our slow cooker meals for Thanksgiving, we have slow cooker mashed potatoes. This is one that we do see quite often. We have attended a lot of Thanksgiving get-togethers and done the prep work for slow cooker mashed potatoes on behalf of our clients before. So this one isn't necessarily going to shock you, but we are including it because it is a great way to make your mashed potatoes and to keep them warm and out of the oven when you're trying to prep all of your other recipes for the big Thanksgiving day. This, just like the sweet potato recipe, does take a little bit of prep time. You are going to have to peel all of your potatoes, slice or chop all of your potatoes, and with a traditional potato like this, if you are doing the prep work ahead of time, you are going to want to keep it stored in just cold or room temperature water in the fridge. That is how you're going to want to store the potatoes if you are prepping them a day or so in advance. That's how you do want to store them. But that's absolutely can be done. The day of, when you are ready to cook, all of the chopped up potatoes go into the slow cooker just with some very minimal seasoning. Just some salt, garlic powder, and onion powder. Then once they're all nice and soft, add in whatever flavors you like. This recipe called for butter, for sour cream, a little bit of extra salt and pepper, of course. It was pretty basic, but absolutely delicious, because mashed potatoes really are just the side dish to the turkey and a place for us to get some of the delicious gravy into our bodies through. So this one was really good. Really happy that we tested out a slow cooker mashed potato recipe. It's a classic for a reason. We hope you enjoyed those recipes, and we'll try them out for your upcoming Thanksgiving meal. If you have any favorite recipes that we didn't include in today's video that make your Thanksgiving even easier to prep and prepare, leave them in the comments below so we can all share. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel before you leave for more content from Maud in the future, and we'll see you in the next video.